Go.
Quick welcome to everybody. My name is Kevin Jackson. I'm an account manager for Fuel Card Services Limited that deals with provision of fuel cards to businesses in the UK. I'm here today to talk about my workplace project proposal and present the ideas that I've had in the project that I'm going to implement. I'm going to talk to you today about the opportunities that I see are available for the organisation that I currently work for and the variety of ideas that I've had. I'm going to identify the strengths and the weaknesses of each project idea, as well as any restrictions and limitations that there may be. We're going to discuss the project objectives and the reasoning behind my selection, the benefits to the organisation as a whole, and the information I'll need to obtain, as well as the resources required to be able to launch the project that I'm going to select. The ideas that I've had for my consideration come after discussions with my colleagues. I've come up with the following project ideas, each of which I feel as its own is well worth consideration due to the benefits each has to offer the organisation. My ideas include a review of training and recruitment process within the organisation, its primary objectives being to reduce staff turnover, as well as increase performance through increased knowledge of the business's products and the market in general. The introduction of recorded calls to the organisation to enhance levels of service provided to customers, as well as establish any training needs, procedure changes or information updates needed to improve service. To increase security around sensitive customer data, such as banking details and personal information, with a view to preventing information being used inappropriately by anyone working for the organisation, and to introduce an employee engagement process where employees are able to voice their opinions. This will allow the organisation to gain an insight from its valued employees, allowing them to respond and react appropriately, reducing staff turnover overall by creating a more productive and rewarding working environment. I'm going to move on to looking at each idea that I've had and the strengths and weaknesses that I've found for each. My organisation currently has a high level of staff turnover. There's no set standards in the recruitment process, and there's no fixed programme for new employees that enter the business. I feel it's inevitable that this is going to continue if nothing's changed. Currently, any team leader that is available at any moment in time, an interview takes place in the business, interviews the candidates. Now, not all team leaders have been given the correct training with regards to interviewing, which results in different standards depending on the interviewer at the time. With new staff members, when new staff members are introduced to the business, there's currently no fixed training programme. New members of staff are given training based on the time the trainer has available, rather than the information that they're required to know and understand in order to become successful in the role. My idea is to review the entire process when recruiting new candidates to the business with a focus on high standards, to appoint individuals who are dedicated to the process, ensuring the high standards are maintained and consistent at all times. I'd also like to introduce a fixed programme for new staff coming into the business, which is headed up by an individual that has the right experience and qualifications regarding training and mentoring, ensuring new staff fully understand the products and services that the business has available, and those that they're being asked to sell and promote, as well as being equipped for situations where objection handling and negotiation techniques may be required. The strengths when I'd looked at this were that it promote high standards throughout the business, and the business will look professional from an outsider's perspective. The business would also develop a reputation of the high standards it requires from its staff in order to give the required level of service to its customers. It would create a sense of consistency. The business will be portrayed as being consistent in all of its recruitment procedures, both internally and externally. And it would create a sense of fairness amongst colleagues, knowing that anyone recruited were recruited on their own strengths and merits, rather than because of the experience they'd received through a poor interviewer. When I've looked at the weaknesses, standards maybe set too high introducing this process, resulting in less candidates recruited for the business to operate at the required levels. This would be due to the high standards that be set. And when I've looked at the restrictions and limitations that they might be for the time it would take to train staff to the new proposed roles, and the cost of training, as well as the salary that would be required for an appointed trainee or mentor to the business. I then moved on to look at the introducing recorded calls to the business. Now, telephone calls are currently not recorded or monitored throughout my organisation as a whole, bearing in mind that my organisation primarily is a call centre. As a result, there's no way of knowing what is being said to the customer on the phone, whether the employees are correctly communicating information regarding the organisation's products or services, as well as not knowing what level of service is being given to the organisation's current and potential customers. Looking after the customer is the most important thing for any business, and the logging and recording of telephone calls will provide important reports that will deliver business insights, as well as enable sales teams to enhance the level of service they provide to customers currently. By capturing customer calls, the organisation will be able to understand how they're being handled, whether customers are satisfied or if there are any recurring issues. This means the organisation will have the opportunity to address customer needs at that time. This effective response would result in increased revenue and customer service. My idea would be to introduce recorded calls to be used for training and monitoring purposes. All calls will be recorded and a system put in place for them to be reviewed on a regular basis. Recordings would be used to help staff improve their sales techniques, as well as identify any areas for improvement, which may include product knowledge or overcoming objections as examples. It would establish any training needs, procedure changes or information updates that are needed to improve service throughout the business. I then moved on to look at the strengths and weaknesses for the proposal. The strength being that it increases enhanced service levels. Customers would feel they were more confident in the information they were receiving from the representative on the phone, as well as the information that the customer was disclosing if the call was recorded. It helps the business identify any problem areas. Management could quickly identify and react to any problem areas. Examples may include closing techniques for a representative or further product training somebody may require. It provides evidence of a business transaction taking place, and it shows that the business is complying with any regulatory procedures. When I've looked at the weaknesses, there might be objections from staff. As calls aren't currently recorded, staff may object to being recorded on the telephone if this is something they're not used to. They may feel as if they're being snooped upon and create a feeling of mistrust. Any staff conscious of the call being recorded may impact the relationship they currently have with their customers or their performance on the call at that time. It also may lead to a scripted environment and create a limitation into what people are able to say on the phone, and being unable to deviate from the script that would result from this. The restrictions and limitations that are in place include legislation such as data protection and the storing of the phone calls themselves, the cost to implement the system to the business as a whole, and the time continuous training of staff with regards to any training needs that are identified from it, as well as the time taken to listen to any recordings that are taken. I then moved on to look at data protection and security. All staff in our organisation currently have unrestricted access to sensitive customer data, including personal and financial information. Some examples include personal home addresses and date of births and banking details, and detailed financial credit reports. Now, separately, some of this information is useless on its own, but together it creates a potential for serious misuse if left unmonitored by anyone who has access to the information. The primary objective of this project will be to increase security around sensitive customer data such as banking details and personal information, preventing the information from being used inappropriately outside of the organisation. This may include limiting the access to certain individuals and information through the use of passwords, as well as keeping logs of when records were accessed and who was accessing them. The strengths of this would that it would increase security within the business. Sensitive details are more secure. It prevents any leaks of or misuse of information that may have an adverse effect on the business. The weakness is, again, it's a trust issue. Staff no longer feel as if they can be trusted with the information that is already currently widely available to them. And again, data protection legislation, to implement this, you need to ensure any new procedures comply with data protection legislation policies. There's also a great cost to the business redeveloping the bespoke software we already have in use by the organisation, and the time it would take to administer it. It will also take more time for staff to carry out their day-to-day roles. For example, if a staff member requires an override to have access to information that they previously were able to access freely. I then moved on to look at employee engagement surveys. Within the organisation, there's currently no opportunities available where staff are able to express any concerns or opinions that they have. Staff are also unable to introduce any new ideas to the business that may increase performance or profitability without being specifically identified, especially if some of these ideas may go against the peer group. My proposal would be to introduce a survey platform to the business which would engage all employees group-wide, providing them with an opportunity to voice any opinions, concerns or new ideas that they have, with the option of remaining anonymous. This will give all employees the ability to express their views freely, especially if they were worried about voicing any concerns due to the effect those concerns may have, as well as being attributed to them. And the information obtained from the survey would enable the business to react and respond quickly to any issues that are identified, whether it be staff requiring further training on specific products, help with the negotiation and closing techniques, or using the opportunity to identify processes that may need to be changed to increase business performance levels. When I looked at the strengths of this opportunity, the ones I looked at was business insights, an insight to the business from an employee's perspective, meaning any decisions that need to be made regarding changes are more informed, and it creates a productive and rewarding working environment. Employees feel a greater sense of fulfilment and more productive when engaged in their work, and therefore become better motivated when it comes to creating satisfied and loyal customers. The weaknesses are that managers may be reluctant to act on any findings that they have, especially if this leads to organisational change and something that they're quite comfortable with already. Restrictions and limitations include compliance with legislation such as data protection and employment law being the questions that you're asking your employees to respond to have got to be relevant. Now, I then looked onto the reasons for selecting my proposed project after consultations with the management team regarding the project ideas I'd had to gauge opinions. Further information came to light, which would mean some of the proposed projects are indeed actually ongoing behind the scenes, of which I was completely unaware. Our HR department is currently working to overhaul the recruitment and training process group-wide, putting standards in place so that all officers are following the same programme. At the size of our organisation, we operate from multiple locations across the country, so any new implementation would need to be rolled out across the group. The organisation is currently working towards additional ISO accreditations, and ISO 27001, which is on the agenda at the moment, covers information security management. And with the above in mind, this one left two projects left for consideration really: implementing recorded calls and employee engagement surveys. When I'd looked at the high cost that would be involved to implement recording calls to the business, it was considered that employee engagement surveys were the most viable option. Quickly we'll move on to looking at the project aims and its objectives.